This is Heard Between the Ears, a podcast about candid conversations and human contradictions. We're your hosts, Kendra and Anna.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Heard Between the Ears. We're your host. I'm Kendra.
And I'm Anna.
There she is.
Still Anna.
So today we're going to be talking about change. So our embracing of change, but also being very resistant to change. Life is all about change. That's like the two things consistent that my aunt always says is change and paying. Wait, no, never mind. That's something else. She usually says there's two things that have happened in your life. You have to die, you have to pay taxes. It has nothing to do with change.
Nothing to do with change, everything to do with consistency. That's okay. You know what?
But life is change. It's all about change. When we think about just evolution, that is the whole idea of changing. The world has changed the way that we adapt to different things, environments. Our genes have changed. And so this is something that's always going to be consistent for us. So we're always so resistant to it. So why do you think we're so resistant to change?
Because it's scary.
True. But it has to happen.
I know. Anything that has to do with the unknown ultimately brings fear to the table because it's different, because it's not something you're used to, because it pushes you out of your comfort zone. And that is something that tends to bring fear and, uncertainty into the equation. So that's my answer, fear.
I mean, I think that is that is the answer, right? We're comfortable in our comfort zone. And so when change is being threatened, that means we have to step outside of our comfort zone to do something new. And who wants to do new things?
I want to do new things. I also want to be comfortable.
I also. Exactly. That's the contradiction of us as people, because I also love to do new things, but also like to stay at the house. So
sure.
What do you think we could do to be more open to accepting change, not only in ourselves, but in other people?
You know, my answer is going to be, it's circumstantial. It depends. This is what my default, honestly, I think in 97% of the conversations we've had is it depends on the situation. And I think we have to own that.
Yeah.
And be okay with it. I don't know why it feels so much like there has to be, and this is why we started the podcast to even begin with, right? It's this idea of being comfortable in whatever feeling is in your body. And so I think we all need to continue to lean into being open and feeling accepted, not only by our community, but accepting you for yourself and how you're feeling in that moment. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how to think about this in a way that doesn't sound so here and there. In order for ourselves to accept each other and how we're feeling, it's like what I just said. You have to be accepting of yourself and feel, I know myself well enough. I'm in a safe enough space with not only myself, but my community to feel the way I feel about this thing, whether it be something that it brings up change or whether you're evolving and changing, or other people are evolving and changing themselves and you're on the receiving end of it. I think rooting ourselves in more of a place of acceptance, respect, compassion, mutual, understanding, all of those just generally kind and considerate places. Being considerate. It's like the golden rule. Isn't that what the golden rule is? Like, I'm drawing a blank for what the golden rule is, like what
the
the words
golden
are
rule
for it.
is treat others like you would treat yourself.
Treat others how you want to be treated. The golden rule. Thank you, Candy. Yes, the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. Grace, everything you said, like I don't want to like beat a dead horse, but yes, we need to be have grace, extended grace for not only ourselves but to others, just because, change is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we embrace change. That's the contradiction of us, right? Sometimes we embrace change because we're ready for something new, but sometimes change comes at a time where we're not comfortable with exploring what that newness is going to bring into in our lives. And so
Mm-hmm.
having the grace to, be patient with yourself, to accepting the change, and also with others when they're going through a period of change with themselves that may not, mesh well with where you are in your life. And I think that kind of leads me into the next question that I want to ask is, what does change look like for you versus others? And I ask that because I feel like it's easy for me to accept other people changing, especially when I can see their progress and their journey, and it's going in a space where it's just like, wow, I'm really proud of this change that you're taking for yourself. But then on the other side, sometimes if that change is like going the opposite way, where it's just like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could be around you anymore. Like, how do you what does change look like for yourself, but also like how do you accept change for others when it's like not necessarily a change that you want to see?
This is a great question. Accepting change for I'm going to flip it first. Accepting change for others generally to me feels a lot easier than accepting change for myself. I think as an adult and just going through life as I've gone through life, the people who have self-awareness and are making changes for a reason. I tend to feel that people make change for the better. People are not making changes for the worse. If a friendship, for example, disintegrates because somebody has changed and they've decided you are a triggering person for them and therefore they need to end the relationship, obviously maybe it hurts on your part, but if it's something that this other person needs in order to improve their quality of life, then I feel like it's that saying where it's, if you love somebody, you let them go kind of thing. Or maybe I'll be extreme. If you hate somebody, let them go. Don't let them be this thing that you're attracted to, the drama and the chaos that that person brings with them. I think I've been in both situations where I've had to love somebody and let them go because ultimately we were in two completely different places and stages of life that were no longer compatible. I've also been in friendships or relationships where we were very triggering to each other, and ultimately having space and time away from each other has given us the ability to appreciate each other for who we are separately. And so maybe there's a time where we come back together in friendship or understanding or being amicable. But for now, there's space there for a reason. And it's created a lot of healing. It's created a lot of reflection. It's created a lot of, questions that I've answered in my head, or conversations that I've had with my therapist. I think ultimately has brought each of us to a better place, both independently and separately. The other thing that I will say to that, related to therapy, of course, because it's like our favorite thing to talk about. I think it was my first therapist. Well, both therapists have said it in different ways. And I've shared, I want to say this first thing before. My first therapist was like, Anna, in therapy and in all of this self-awareness, things are going to come up for you where you're going to want to retreat and leave. But what I will tell you is, if you are to pick up and move, for example, you're still in this relationship. The relationship that you have with yourself isn't going to go anywhere. So if you're making changes and these changes that you're making aren't something that you're like stoked about, then you're still going to have the same issues come up for you no matter where you are. And so whether it be a physical place or more of like an emotional or mental place of capacity, if you're not loving where you are in that moment, wherever you are, you're not doing yourself any favors. So do the work to get to a place where you're actually really loving and happy with yourself, not only in your being, but your physical, where you are on this earth. The other thing my other therapist said was, in boundary setting, you're going to turn a lot of people off because you're finding your voice and coming up with the things that matter most to you. And you're basically drawing a line and saying, this is my safe space. This is where I'm comfortable being. It's going to ruffle a lot of feathers because it feels like you are changing as a person. But again, you are creating that space and figuring out what matters most to you. And therefore, you may push some people away. It may be something where it's that you need time and space away from each other in order to come back together. And so I know that was a lot of information that I just spewed at you. And you were nodding your head with me most of the time. So I can't wait to hear your take.
I was, because I think I resonate with a lot of these things, and I was taking notes because I was wanting to like remember what I wanted to say after you finished
as talking. I was going on and on and on.
So I 1,000% agree with everything you just said, but also what I really want to touch on are the boundaries. And it's something that my therapist, I don't know if I've said this before on here, but I know I say it a lot because she says it a lot. We set boundaries because we want to keep the relationship.
Right.
And so I think as we are going through this inevitable process of change that we all have to go through as we, go through life, get older, change jobs, get new relationships, whatever, we have to set boundaries with other people to make sure that they're not infringing on what we want for ourselves or disrespecting us, if that is one of the things why you need a boundary. And I think as I've gotten older, I have become better at drawing boundaries versus like completely cutting people off, because that was my go-to thing.
Same. Yeah.
I'm gonna just cut you off.
Cut them out of your life.
Deal with this.
Yeah.
But now I'm getting better with speaking why I need to draw a boundary with somebody and explaining why that behavior, conversation, whatever was not okay, and we need to draw a boundary so we can, continue this relationship, has just been like amazing. But also, as I've gotten older, I've learned to put people in their quote unquote box. And I don't mean to say like you stay in this place because this is who you are. So like I found, as we were younger, we like to call everyone our friends. This person is our friend. This person is our friend. This person is our friend. And it's like, no, we have different relationships with people. And there's things that I would not say to an associate or a colleague or somebody else that I would say to a family member or a friend. And so I've gotten a lot better calling people, recognizing the relationships that I have with someone and saying, this is just an associate for me. And it's not a bad thing. We all have associates. Not everyone is meant to be your friend.
Right.
I know that based on our previous history and how we interact, it's not good for me to be a friend. I'm not a good friend to you, or you're not a good friend to me. So we're associates. When we see each other out, we love to have fun together, but it doesn't get deeper than that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to have people in our lives that fit in different boxes. And I think as I've gotten more into therapy, more about drawing boundaries, it's become easier for me to put people in the places that they belong. This is an ex-colleague, or this is a current colleague. Sometimes my colleagues turn into my friends.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, they're just my colleagues. And that's okay.
Right. Yeah. Good for you. I have a hard time drawing that boundary. I think, again, because I I find myself getting energy from other people just as much as I need the time to detach and have solo time. For whatever reason, I like to be friendly with my colleagues. Now, this is interesting though, to your point of like colleagues and associates. We get along great. We, can chat about how was your weekend, this, that, and the other, but I am not calling certain people on the weekends to hang out. It's not, it's not that I wouldn't hang out with them. It's that I'm like, we probably collectively, each other, aren't picking up the phone and being like, what are you doing this weekend, kind of thing. And it's probably a little bit of the nature of the business. I can very much see and appreciate in adulthood being able to identify the people that you want to spend time with, put energy into the relationship. It feels mutually beneficial. It doesn't feel like that person is sucking the energy from you. You're getting energy from each other. And I think being able to see that as an adult is definitely something that I very much appreciate now, as opposed to your point, when we were young, thus and so is my friend. And I feel like we use the word friend so loosely in childhood because, for example, you're in a classroom with all these kids, clearly you're not having the best relationships with every single kid in your class, but calling this person or that person my friend, and then actually understanding what friendship is as you get older. And it's interesting. One would think maybe they do this in some like really progressive school, but like why not teach boundary setting to like 4th and 5th graders? It'd be interesting to see what that would do for kids at that stage in life, like 9, 10, 11 years old.
I think there's a lot of parents, the gentle parenting thing, I don't want to call it a thing. It's this idea that parents our age, the millennials, some Gen Xers and younger, are teaching gentle parenting practices in which they are establishing like teaching kids to establish their own boundaries and what makes them comfortable or not. And I think in a couple of years, when these kids start to get, teenagers, adults, I think they will be able to navigate the world better than we have been able to.
Yeah. I didn't know what a boundary was until like a year or two ago. If I'm being completely honest, the first time that my therapist was like, Anna, you need to get better at boundary setting, I was like, what? What's that? Because when I think of a boundary, for whatever reason, like an electric fence comes to mind. I'm just like, this is the line. Don't cross this line. Electric fence, like concrete barrier. And so that's when I thought I was setting a boundary, I was like, this is going to be such a huge turnoff to somebody else, especially to somebody like my mom, who I love my mother to death. When I went through this stage of boundary setting, it was really challenging for my parents and for me to set the boundary, one, to begin with, but two, for them to be like, all of a sudden, where is this coming from? Like, why are you not telling us everything? You used to share all of this information and now we feel like we're being cut off. And I'm like, this isn't the point. The point is I need this time and space to reflect and understand, how I feel about something. I think that's the main takeaway in boundary setting is like, hold up, I need time to process, think, and feel and be in my body. You can keep doing your thing. Just understand that respectfully, that, I'm over here doing the things that I need to do in order to take care of myself so that I can become a better person. Like, please realize that ultimately this is for both of our benefit, but I'm holding the stop sign up right now because you've said stop before as being a word that has helped you in things. Like, I'm holding the stop sign up. I need a break. I need to take a time out. I need to assess, what's going on in my life so that I can either turn it around and head in a different or a better direction, or be like, actually, you know what, I'm okay in this space, and like I just needed the time to be able to reflect on that.
Yeah, so boundaries for me, I feel like I've always done. I just didn't realize that that's what I was doing. And it wasn't until I read the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace that I'm a very rigid boundary person. Like my boundaries are very rigid. I mean, they've become more flexible since I've started therapy, but I feel like everything before therapy was a very rigid boundary, which is why it was easy to cut people off.
Yeah.
And so I think learning how to be flexible with my boundaries and learning that just because I'm setting a boundary doesn't mean I have to stop talking to that person. Or even like setting boundaries with family. Setting boundaries with family is so hard because they knew you all your life. And so sometimes our parents see us as children, still see us in their eyes as children, these little kids that they took care of. And now that we're adults, it's like, hi, remember, I'm an adult. You don't get to tell me what I can and can't do anymore, right?
Yeah, that's so funny. I feel like when I'm on the phone with I'm like, is it okay if I go over to X and so person's house? You know what I'm like? Yeah. I'm an adult. I'm almost 40 years old. I make my own decisions. I find myself like sitting here, like stamping the ground, like I am an adult.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of being like, I need to ask for permission to set a boundary.
And it's like, nope, your boundaries are for you. So you don't need permission to set boundaries. You set them the way that you need. So we talk a lot about boundaries and kind of like our family. And I think that boundaries and change really tie into each other.
Right.
But how do you approach change when it comes to like your work life or excuse me, your relationships? That smile.
I know. Here's where the people pleaser in me in work life, boundaries become very flexible. You don't want to let somebody down. You may be setting a boundary of work-life balance. I'm only going to work an 8-hour day. I like the time outside of that is my time. My company is relatively flexible as far as like time off. Our thing is just make sure that whatever you're doing, you're setting your team up for success and that nobody's waiting on you. Like get the job done. But in times of craziness, like this past week has been really crazy for me. I was helping. I have a colleague who's actually out of the country for 2 weeks, and I'm so excited that she's on vacation. I also am having the giant realization that I've been in this job for like 4 months, and I'm like, am I doing this right? But I'm doing the best that I can, and like nobody at the end of the day, like things are still happening. Work is moving forward. Does it look like what she would have done in the job? Probably not. But at the end, like, is something exploding or, like, is shit hitting the fan? No, shit's not hitting the fan. Like, we're all good. And I've had to work a lot this week, more than I would have wanted, like, I guess wanted to, and or if I was just covering my own projects, I'm obviously working more. So for me, like the boundary of work-life balance for the time that I'm covering for her looks a little bit different because I know the pendulum is going to swing the other way. In relationships, I am in a new relationship, and on Thursday, I forget, I had worked a really long day. I hadn't had any exercise, and one of my personal boundaries, I guess, if you will, I need to have like exercise. I need to be able to move my body. It makes me feel a lot better. I need to be able to expend energy. So even though I said, hey, like I will come over and have dinner, I was like, I need until 7:30 because I just have got to like go run or move. Or, like I need to have physical activity at this point. And so like I got a very like sweet, like, okay, like fine, go. It came from a good place. It was like, all right, fine. Like, I understand this is something that matters a lot to you kind of thing. So it's all in how you serve it up, right? Like with work, with other people. being able to carve out time for yourself or whatever your need is, and speaking up, use your voice. It's so hard for me. Again, that people pleaser in me is like, I want to say yes to everything and help everybody out, but I've had to realize, like, you need to get a lot better at advocating for yourself and what your needs are.
I think for me, and I feel like I had like a crisis of not like a mid-year crisis, a midlife crisis, but like just like a crisis of, oh my God, I'm starting over. So I went to grad school when I turned 30. Like right before I turned 30 is when I started my second grad program. And it just felt like I was starting over, and I was freaking out about it because I'm like, I'm 30 now and I'm still in school.
Yeah.
I've just restarted school. I have no idea what I really want to do with my life. And I feel like, and I was just like questioning my decision to go back to school. I think for me, that was a very hard time for me.
Yeah.
For one. But I think what I like reflecting back on that time, and even like after I finished school, I had to keep telling myself, you know, that life is all about change. And people will, I'm supposed to start over. How many ever times I need to start over to like get myself back on track or try something new, then I'm going to start over. It's not the end of the world. People start over all the time. People start over when they're 60. People have to start over when they're 20. And so I think for me, since then and also now, I'm constantly telling myself that no matter what happens, what life throws you, life is all about change, because we are meant to keep moving. We're not meant to stay still and be in our little comfort zones. We are meant to change. And I think that really changed the way that I thought about also therapy.
This podcast is sponsored by therapy.
Also therapy, but like also just reminding myself that, because you know, it's very easy for us to get into this comparison game, especially with social media and all these people. And like I remember when I hit 35, I was just like comparing myself to these kids who were doing all these amazing things. And I'm just like, well,
here we are.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Not doing anything. And I actually was doing some amazing things, but like, it doesn't feel that way when you're comparing someone else's ending, not necessarily their ending, but like someone's like in the middle of their journey, in their middle of their success to my beginning, or like just starting up a new hill. And so change sucks. It really sucks. And it's necessary, but it, you know, you can make it through.
Right.
I guess you can make it through.
Yep. Sure can. It's interesting because what I was just thinking too, I was about to butt into your conversation and be like, but Kendra, what is success?
That's true. That's true. Like, we all define success so differently. And so just because the world thinks or society imposes that success looks like having this amount of money, having this specific job, influencing this amount of people, having this 2.5 family, or whatever they say, you know, the house, the kids, the fence, whatever, the dog. And like, that may not be success for me. And really it's not. Success for me is being able to have the freedom to do what I want to do when I want to do it.
Oh, I love that.
And so that doesn't always mean having $1 billion. I mean, yes, that will help, but like, if I'm making enough money that I'm able to make the decision to like not work today or go visit family because I want to, or go on a trip, that is success to me.
Yeah. I agree on your definition of success. I also think that your definition of success today looks, sounds, and feels a lot different than what it was 5-10 years ago, 2 days ago even. You might define it differently tomorrow or the day after that. And just understanding, again, to your point of evolution, it's these concrete ideas or what listen, this may just be even a me thing. Like, I just have this concrete idea that, success is this. My definition of success versus yours versus somebody down the street versus somebody who lives in another country, like, it's all going to be different. Now we may collectively agree that success feels like a positive, like it doesn't feel like a negative, right? So, we just all gotta relax a little bit, maybe not be so hard on ourselves, relax a little bit, celebrate the wins, like, no matter how small they are. Definitely celebrate the big wins, but don't forget about, how far you've gone in your journey to get where you are today.
Oh, agreed. Because it's always a domino effect, right? Your big win was predicated by these small wins to get to that overly rambunctious win.
Yeah. Right.
And I think
I'm like,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm telling myself, Anna, you need to listen to this podcast again later, because all of this truth knowledge, like, start eating it up yourself. I also think, honestly, just from a personal place, having these conversations with you, I feel like has improved my life tremendously. So I don't care if you and I are the only two people listening to each other talk about this stuff. I feel empowered in a brand new way. So thank you for having the conversation with me in an open and honest forum.
Of course. This has also been helpful to me too, because sometimes I'll like think about if something is happening and I'm just like, oh yeah, we just talked about this on the podcast.
I don't know. Does that keep happening to you? Because it happens for me. I'm like, did we already talk about this in the podcast? Or am I just like, am I taking a spoonful of my own medicine and actually like growing as a human and evolving? To your point of evolving be the buzzword of the day. Like, yes, I hear you. I'm with you.
So I have a couple of more questions and then we can transition to.
You're good. I was just also making sure that you and I were on the same page with things. So hit it, sis.
Yeah, so I wanted to follow up on this idea about society and the way that we interpret things, but what do you think our culture and our society is telling us about change, and how do you think we are interpreting that idea?
Oh, great question. Do you know what just popped into my head? And I think it just might be like where we are in the season of our life.
What?
I hope that this doesn't come across the wrong way. So Barack Obama's like campaign of change or like hope and having his face be a part of that, without this diving too much into like a politically charged conversation, when I hear the word change come up, for whatever reason, I think from like a societal standpoint, it feels like change has to be this quote unquote radical idea. I'm like air quoting at this point in time. So this like radical change or some sort of like kink in the plans where an anticipated something that gives this also questionable result. Like change from a societal standpoint, in my opinion, feels like it has a negative connotation with it, when change really, when received from the right place, is intended to be a good thing. I don't know why, again, change. Maybe this is where it's coming from for me personally. If I'm thinking about change, where did I first start to, like, where's the origin story of change for me? And the analogy that I'm going to give is, if you have a glass of water and you pour food coloring into it, the glass of water all of a sudden gets this like cloud of color, right? So like change in my like young child brain, it had to be something that you see as like happening, having some sort of like reaction to the environment. And so I think change ultimately comes with this idea of like something is different.
I would agree with both of the negative connotation that change has with our society, but also that something, you see the change.
Yeah.
Right. And I think which is so contrary to what change is. Like, we just spent a whole like 10 to 15 minutes talking about how change is inevitable.
Right.
And so the way that we as a society, or our culture specifically, I don't want to speak about anybody else's culture because we're Americans and we're living in America right now. So
right.
In our culture, change is always seen as a bad thing. Like, I feel like more recently, people have been talking about trying to make change a more positive thing.
Yeah.
But honestly, change is neutral because it's required, it's necessary, it's inevitable. Like, we are all meant to change. Like, if we were all meant to stay the same, we would be the same, we would look the same or be the same as we were as children, and we're not.
Yeah.
And so I don't love that change in our society has become this negative, has always been this negative thing. Because even when you think about the foundations of this country, I know I'm taking it there, but that's because that's my nature.
Yeah.
The foundations of this country, and just even how the segregation has happened. And even now we see that Kamala versus Trump, and how a lot of the people that are following Trump, they're scared of change that has already happened.
Mm.
Right? The change has happened. There are a lot of Black and brown people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
This country has always had Black and brown people, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Native Americans, the slaves, and then the influx of immigrants, right? So to say that the change that they're quote unquote afraid of, it's like the change has already happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
you got to get on board because the change is going to keep happening because that's inevitable. It's a
Mm-hmm.
neutral thing, and we just need to change with the sea. And I understand why it's so scary. Nobody likes change. If we love change, a lot of things that have happened in the history of the world would not have happened. Right?
Yeah.
We would have embraced it. We would have embraced other cultures instead of trying to colonize other cultures. We would have embraced other people instead of trying to put them in boxes and stereotype them if we embraced change. But that is not how we are as human beings. We hate it. And so I think we the collective, we have to
Mm-hmm.
continue to beat the message that change is neutral, change is inevitable. And we have to keep showing, modeling, acting of how it is to embrace change when we're scared, embrace change when we're confused, embrace change when we don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
We got to embrace change whether we're kicking and screaming, but change is going to happen. So I'm just going to get off my soapbox now.
I know. Change is inevitable. Change happens every day. I just, it's like, how do you move the needle? You know what I mean? Like, how do you move the needle in the conversation of change? I was trying to think of like, what is a positive connotation of change? And the thing that came up, the quote that came up in my head was, be the change you wish to see in the world. So like, that feels like it still has a radical connotation to it, right? Like, be the change, be something different, do something different, act different. You know, like there's this like before and after part of the conversation, part of the sentence. Like, here's how things were before. We're gonna, we're moving away from before into this place of after. And like, how do we move the needle in a way where it doesn't feel like, be the change. Oh my God, all of the air just like came out of the room because everybody's so scared and terrified about what the change is. The change could be a good thing. The change can be like, I don't know, maybe before you were sitting in your room alone by yourself, somebody knocked on your door, they're a friend and they're going to change your life. Like,
But even just looking at the way that we have progressed as a human,
human race,
human race.
humanity. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Oh my God, I couldn't think of the word. We went from agriculturalists, like we were cavemen and women, so to speak, right? With these tools that we don't use today. That in itself, the way that technology has changed, come in and change a lot of things that we do for the better. The way that industry has changed, sometimes for the worse, but also a lot of times for the better. And so if we look at how we as humans have been resilient with change, if we embrace change in that way to say, a lot of the change that we have endured has actually been better for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vaccines. There would be a lot more people dead if things like vaccines didn't exist, right? When we think about the Black Plague and all of these other, and the smallpox and all of these other viruses that happened in like the 1900s before vaccines were a thing, like a lot of people died.
Yeah. Yeah.
With COVID, right? And so like COVID is another example where like a lot of people died from COVID. I don't want to make light of that as if it like these things happened centuries ago. It just happened. But a vaccine, and that's thanks to technology. That's thanks to the things that we've done to change the way that we think about human existence, human life, science. And so I think if we embrace it in that way to say everything that we've done up to now has been good in some way for the better of everyone, I can only think that change is going to continue to be better for us.
I agree. Do you know what just came into my head though? Those conspiracy theorists who are like, we're all in this like pre-programmed, video game simulation, the Truman Show, where there's like producers over our heads pulling strings, like little puppet strings. I was like, oh my God, the conspiracy theorists could have a complete heyday with this and just run away with it. Yeah,
I'm sure.
I'm not discrediting anything that you said. I agree, like technology, going from this like prehistoric place of like the first person who invented the wheel. Oh my God, like how brilliant are you? Right? So then like this wheel has now come, full circle from point A to now wheels basically run the world. Like seriously, like invention of a circle.
Right.
What it's done for humankind, if you want to break it down to something as silly as that.
Right. Lights, telephones. Like people were sending messages, like we were sending snail mail, letters in the mail that would take weeks to get to, that we weren't, and now we can just send a text or do a video call. Like,
right. What do you think I don't even want to, I'm like, what do you think the future is going to look like? We're already talking on computers. Like, are you going to have a chip you're going to have a chip in your arm and be able to like be a holograph across I'm going to be able to beam myself to my family in Cincinnati like this versus, getting on a plane, and it's great.
I don't know if that is going to be a thing, but I do think holograms are going to become a thing. Like, this is my prediction. I think there's going to be a way for us to have conversations with each other versus the phone, but now it'll be holograms.
That's like Star Trek. I feel that. I think that's going to happen. It's probably going to happen sooner than later. They're probably already doing it, to be honest.
Right.
Like, honestly. Yeah. Okay, so we digress from like change of like a change of a real place to change of like this figment of our imagination. Where do you want to go next, Miss Kendra?
I think we are ready to talk questions. We did a lot. We've talked a lot about change.
Lots of change.
I feel like we've talked a lot about it, and I feel like there's more we could say, but we're just gonna change to the next topic.
Transition to the next topic. A secret question. Okay.
Yep.
Secret question. What was the last change in your life that became a benefit?
Oh my God, that is very similar to the question that I have for you. But
good.
Okay, so what is the change?
What was one change you made in your life that was a positive result? Like how did like giving change a positive spin?
Okay. I would say my change of residence.
Oh, yeah. We like the natty.
It's
Walnut Hills.
Where what? So like when I moved here first, I moved here in 2011 to go to grad school. I worked here for a couple of years and then I moved, and I did not like Cincinnati. I did not like Cincinnati, but I'm recognizing I didn't like it because I was in a toxic work environment. And so that colored a lot of my a lot of the things I had to that I liked and knew about Cincinnati was because of that. But also I was traveling a lot for work, so I didn't get to explore Cincinnati in a way that would actually allow me to see whether or not I like this place. And so when I moved back, and so actually when I moved away, I said I will never come back to Cincinnati.
And lo and
here I
behold,
am.
Here you are. Yeah.
So I will say that when I knew that I had to move back here, I told myself that I would embrace this change and really give Cincinnati a chance, because I didn't give it a chance. Like, there was no way it was getting a chance the last time I was here. So I think me embracing the city, embracing my space, embracing my friend circles has really changed the way I think about this city. Like, I would not live here forever.
You're not going to live there forever?
I'm not. But I feel like I'm in a better space than I was when I moved here first.
Yeah.
I'm very content. And I know sometimes being content can be like a bad thing, but if you understood how much I dislike this city, you would know that being content here is actually a huge step up.
I think don't knock it till you try it, because actually I agree with you as far as now I don't know what's going to happen to my residence, to be honest with you. I love being in Colorado. I absolutely love it. There is a lot that can change that could take me back to Cincinnati, whatever. I'll end up wherever I'm going to end up. I'm not going to steal your story, but the thing that I will say is whenever I travel, because Cincinnati will always be home to me, whenever I travel, I'm like, where is the XYZ coffee shop that's equivalent in Cincinnati to where it is in the place that I'm visiting? I find myself comparing, where is the meat counter of my favorite butcher in Cincinnati here in Colorado? And it's just those things that are comfortable and feel like home to me. I'm like that. I mean, Cincinnati will always have my heart as far as that goes. Right. So I think I'm glad that you're appreciating the city and you're feeling content. I think that's a good thing for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my answer in a completely different place because, again, like I said, I could steal yours, but I'm not going to. It's so stupid, but at the same time, whatever. So something that I recently tried that I hadn't up until this point, mind you, I keep telling our audience, I'm 37 years old. Up until this point, I have not tried cottage cheese, and I can say I like cottage cheese. So it's a change for me. I didn't, for the longest time, I was like, that looks disgusting. I'm not going to touch that. It's just from a textural place. I was like, it looks weird. It looks gross. I tried it and I like it. I'll say the same thing for blue cheese too. I was very anti-blue cheese for the longest time. Yeah. I can get down with some blue cheese now. Before I was like, that stuff's disgusting. It smells gross. It tastes weird. Now I'm all about a wedge salad. Love it.
I think, like you said, with cottage cheese, it's a texture thing, but I've been seeing a lot of people on Pinterest blending cottage cheese so it's not as textury. And so if I
blending it in a blender
and then putting it on some other thing, and then adding it to their meal, whatever they were making. And so if I ever fix my mouth to buy and purchase cottage cheese, which is it's not in the future right now. That's not happening for me right now. I will try blended cottage cheese because I feel like I would like it if it's blended.
Blend it, girl. Do it. Give it a try. Be radical. Be the change you wish to see in your food pyramid.
Because cottage cheese just has so much protein, and I feel like
that's the thing. I was like, you know what? Everybody's like, it's a protein-rich food, and I, for the longest time, we're completely deviating from the conversation. It's fine. I'm okay with it.
But we're talking about change.
I know. I avoided cottage cheese. I avoided a lot of dairy to begin with. I'm still kind of on the fence about dairy even. But I'm down with the cottage cheese. I love it. I think it's so good. I'll do weird stuff with it. I put cottage cheese and rice together. Tomatoes with everything but the bagel seasoning, some cucumbers. It's good. You'll like it. Blend it and try it and get back to me.
No, no, maybe next year.
Okay, well, put it on your radar. What's your secret question?
Okay, what's a change that's occurred? What is a change that's occurred that you never thought you would embrace? So
We
very
do have
similar.
similar questions. This is for me in my personal life. What's a change that that's occurred?
Anywhere, life, work, relationships, food.
How truthful do you want me to be? I'll be truthful. This is
Please
a safe space. Well, it's happened. Okay, so this has happened more than once. So it's not I'm going to what's current in life. So
Okay.
in my when I was like manifesting a human for myself, like a partner, I was like, I will never date a person who XYZ. And now I find myself dating a person who is not a lot of what I said I didn't want, but like, you know how in your head you're like, I think this person's going to look like this and have this and do this and whatever. I think that a lot of that has changed again with age and time and realizing what do I find attractive? I find stability and safety and feeling taken care of very attractive. In a previous life, I didn't realize this until like more recently. I was attracted to a lot of like chase and anxiety and excitement, but like not excitement from like oh, this is so fun, like excitement and I don't know what's going to happen next. And so I think realizing I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm chasing somebody or feeling a kind of like feeling uncertain about something. I want to be in a relationship where it's like, this feels really good. My nervous system isn't completely shot. I don't feel like I have to pick up the phone and be like, what are you doing? Like, I just want to feel secure and stable and taken care of and embraced and like I'm not a weirdo, you know? Like, it's okay to be who I am at this particular moment in my life. And somebody will find that attractive. And so, yeah, I'm attracted
You're
to
looking
that.
for a secure attachment.
I'm looking for my secured attachment style. We've talked about attachment styles. Yeah. No longer, yeah, I don't chase, I attract. That was my mantra going into dating in this stage in life. I don't chase, I attract. It took me a long time to get to the point where realizing that chasing isn't cute. We don't want to chase. We don't want we don't want to pick them up and be like, love me. No, we want to feel secure in our relationships and have that be. We're not attracted to the drama.
No.
No.
I like drama when it has nothing to do with me. I like to observe mess and drama
from
over
a distance,
there.
safe distance. Ugh. What was your answer?
For me, something I never thought I would embrace is being vulnerable.
Guess what you're doing right now? Being vulnerable.
Being vulnerable. And it's just, look at me being vulnerable.
Look at you being vulnerable.
Look at me being vulnerable. So I think for me, being another thing my therapist always says is like we as humans want to be known. We want to be seen, we want to be known, we want to be heard. And so what I realized in therapy was like I wasn't getting any of that because I wasn't being vulnerable with the people in my life.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that vulnerability is, I love it. It's not that I love vulnerability, right? I'm still going to be kicking and screaming every time that I have to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think just seeing how being vulnerable has opened up this space where people can get to know me for the person that I am, embrace me, all of me for who I am, and just like even just deepen our relationships. And so vulnerability is something that I never thought I'd embrace, but here I am embracing it. So
it's what just came to mind with that is like attracts like. like attracts like. So vulnerable people can generally attract other vulnerable people, hence you and I sitting on the other sides of the screen. You know what I'm saying? Like, half of the conversations that you and I have had, honestly, this is episode 10, if you can believe it. I haven't had this kind of a conversation with a lot of my close friends and family. I feel like we've broken down a lot of barriers between each other. Again, coming together in this, you know, creating a safe space for each other. So vulnerability, girl. Snaps for that. I'm all about it. Love vulnerability. It gets me it does get me in trouble sometimes because I tend to be open and honest with a certain type of person, and sometimes I feel like, you know, I can share too much. But if the other person on the other side of the table or the screen or the conversation is also, you know, equally being vulnerable, then like celebrate that. I love vulnerability for you. It looks good on you, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's been a time. It has been a time.
I think that's embracing change.
Me with cottage cheese one day.
Me with I don't know what I'm gonna embrace. I embraced a lot of change. Like lately in life, I've embraced a lot of change. I'll just keep embracing it because you know what? It's brought me to this point. That's right. We're evolving.
And change is inevitable. So
change is inevitable. We're evolving and changing. It's inevitable. Let's do it. More to come.
Yes. Until next time.
Until next time.
Thank you for listening. If you like the podcast, please like and subscribe, drop a comment, leave a review, and connect with us on social media at Heard Between. And we hope you keep coming back for more. Until next time.